Hi, in this video we will cover IAM setup for groups. In our previous video we went through the IAM setup for users and we briefly touched upon groups. So in this video we will go through in a bit more detail of how to create and name those groups, and then we will also go through how to grant access and permissions to these groups for based upon the broader role classification. Now, in our imaginary project, we now have more users, and what we have realized is with more users, there's more complexity. So we cannot go back to how we individually created the permissions to each and every user. So we still have to create the users individually. However, instead of assigning them permissions individually, what we will do is now we will group the permissions based on the role or job classification. So in this imaginary project, Jack, Rita, and Mike are grouped under developers, and they're supposed to get EC2 and S3 read-only permissions. So Jack, Rita, and Mike. Whereas Zane and Sarah are classified as front-end designers, and the permissions that they are supposed to have is only EC2 read-only access. So they only have they are green only under this set of permissions. Okay, so based upon this construct, we will create a new set of groups. We already have developers. We will create a new group called front-end designers, and we will assign these permissions to these groups, and then we will attach these users to these specific groups. All right, so let's go back to our AWS management console. Let's start. So I'm back to my AWS management console, and I will go back to identity and access management. Alright, so now I will straight away go to groups. So I already have one group over here, which is developers. I will start off by creating a new group called front-end designers. Then I'll click on next. And here we will assign the permissions. So if you recall, what we had decided was that we had already decided that front-end designers, they would only be given policy permission for EC2 read-only access. So let's go back to our AWS management console. So I'm going to attach the policy for front-end designers as Amazon EC2 read-only access, and then click on next step. So front-end designers, and the policy is EC2 read-only access. Perfect. So now we have two groups, developers and front-end designers. Now, previously for developers, when I had initially set this up, the only permission that I had granted to this was EC2 read-only access. However, if you recall, we're supposed to give S3 read-only access as well. So as we had decided for our project, developers are supposed to get both EC2 and S3 read-only access. So let me just amend that in the management console now. Okay, so here we are. Back to developers. So we're going to attach a new policy, S3 read-only access, which came up right up over here. In case it didn't come when you're going through your hands-on by yourself, then just type S3 and the options will come. So there's a S3 full access, S3 read-only access, and this is the policy that we want to assign to developers. So let's attach that, and yep, so it shows. So we can see now for developers, they have EC2 read-only access and S3 only access. So we have these two new users, Mike and Sarah. So let me just create them on the AWS management console, and then after that, based on what we had decided, I'm going to assign roles. Put Jack, Rita, and Mike to developers group, and put Zane and Sarah to the front-end designers. So let me create Mike and Sarah as the new users. So I'm already on users over here, and now I'm going to create the new users. First, I'm going to create Mike, and I'm going to enable Mike to only have programmatic access, and we're going to go next to permissions. Okay, now because we've already created the group, so it's now much more easier. I will just simply add the user to the group. I don't need to attach the existing policies directly, which we did in the previous video for IAM setup for users. Neither do I have to copy permission from an existing user. So I will simply add Mike to front end. In fact, let me go back and let me create two users. So Mike and Sarah, and give them programmatic access. Go to permissions, click front-end designers, go to tags. This is optional, so just skip and just review. So users names Mike and Sarah, programmatic access, and they're supposed to be part of group front-end designers. So let me create the users. Alright, this is done and the access key ID is created. Okay, I'll close this. Now what I need to do is, so you can see over here now, Mike and Sarah are part of the group front-end designers. However, Jack, Rita, and Zane, who were part of my earlier group, they need to be amended. In fact, actually I realized I made a mistake. So Mike, yeah, so Mike is actually part of developers, not front-end designers. Sarah is part of front-end designers, and Zane, who has not been assigned to any particular group, needs to be put into front-end designers. So it's a good thing that I made that error, and let me show you how to rectify it. So first, let's go to Mike and go to groups. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to remove him from front-end designers. So let me do that. Remove him from the group. Okay, and add user to the group. So Mike is supposed to be part of developers. That's right. So that's done. Okay, now go back to users. So now that's right. So Mike is coming correctly developers and Sarah's front-end designers. So let me amend for Zane first. So Zane is only EC2 read-only access, which I'd given him earlier. I'm going to add him to the groups and front-end designers. Okay, this is done. And then, in fact, and what I'll do is I will delete this earlier permissions because he's already part of group, so we don't need this duplication. Yeah, so if you go into groups, he has EC2 read-only access, and that earlier permissions is, yep, attached from group over here. Now going back to the users, so Jack, Mike, and Rita are part of developers. So let me just attach that. So can I do it together? So this is Jack. So apparently I can't do it together. So I will first attach him to the group, attach him to the group, attach him to developers. Great, and then I will delete these individual permissions so that there's no duplication. And this would be useful because in case later Jack has to be put into a new group with different permissions, then you don't have an overlap with those individual permissions, and the only permissions are from the group. So you can see over here, attached from group. So let me now go back to users, and Jack is now part of developers, and Rita now needs to be part of developers. So let me just change that. So delete these individual permissions. Go to groups, add to developers. Yep, and here we're done. Alright, so just to cross-verify again, so developers are supposed to be given the policy permissions of EC2 and S3 read-only access, and it's only Jack, Rita, and Mike. And now on the IAM console, I click on groups. So I click on developers, and I look at what are the permissions, EC2 and S3 read-only access, correct? And are the users correct? So it should be, yeah, that's right, Mike, Jack, and Rita. And if I go to the other one, which is front-end designers, so it should be Zane and Sarah, and the only permission is EC2 read-only access. So this is how you go about the groups setup, creation of groups, and assigning permissions. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching.